Digital nest leverage. How home content curates a microampere. The corporate tower is emptying, not because of a recession, not because of layoffs, but because the smartest operators have realized something the market hasn't priced in yet. Proximity to your asset base is the most undervalued competitive advantage in the modern economy. While executives spend 3 hours commuting to perform tasks that could be executed from a kitchen island, a quiet class of builders is doing something different. They're not leaving the workforce. They're relocating their headquarters. And the infrastructure they're building, content, audience, intellectual property, appreciates while they sleep. By the end of this video, you will understand why your home is not a retreat from the economy. It is a position of structural power. And the women who recognize this early are constructing something the traditional employment model can no longer offer. Equity that compounds across decades, not paychecks that evaporate across weekends. Let's address the exhaustion first. Because if you've spent the last 5 years toggling between conference calls and school pickups, between performance reviews and pediatrician appointments, you know the feeling. That bone-deep fatigue that no amount of sleep or vacation days can touch. The cultural narrative will tell you this exhaustion is personal, that you need better boundaries, better time management, a more supportive partner. And while those things matter, they're treating symptoms, not diagnosing the structural flaw. The flaw is this: you are operating within an economic model designed for a worker who does not exist anymore. The mid-century employment contract assumed a support system at home, someone handling logistics, someone managing the household operations, someone ensuring continuity while the breadwinner optimized for a single metric, productivity within the firm. That model is gone. But the expectations haven't adjusted. So, you're running 2 operations simultaneously, the professional and the domestic, but only one is compensating you, and neither is building equity in your name. The company you work for accrues value from your output. Your labor appreciates their asset. And at home, you're managing complex systems, nutrition, education, emotional regulation, social capital that the economy has decided to value at zero. This is not sustainable, but more importantly, it's not optimal. Because the women who are stepping back from that model aren't retreating, they're reallocating. They're taking the intellectual capital they've built, the strategic thinking, the project management, the ability to synthesize complexity, and they're deploying it into infrastructure they own. The economic data is unambiguous. Traditional employment offers linear returns. You trade time for money, and the ceiling is determined by your salary band, your industry, and your willingness to sacrifice personal sovereignty for incremental raises. Even at the executive level, compensation is capped by the firm's willingness to pay. You are always negotiating from a position of dependency. But digital content operates under different mathematics. A single piece of intellectual property, a video, an essay, a course, a framework, can generate returns long after the initial effort. It scales without additional labor. It reaches audiences you will never meet, in time zones you will never visit, creating leverage that employment simply cannot match. This is not about becoming an influencer. This is about understanding the architecture of modern wealth. Wealth, at its core, is ownership of assets that appreciate. Real estate, equity in companies, intellectual property. The women who are building from home aren't creating content for attention. They're creating assets for autonomy. And here's the mechanism most people miss. The home is not a disadvantage in this model. It is an unfair advantage. Because while traditional operators are hemorrhaging resources on commutes, office politics, and the performance of productivity, you are operating from a position of zero friction. No commute means reclaimed hours. No office theater means energy directed toward output, not optics, and proximity to your dependents. Those small humans whose needs are non-negotiable forces you to architect systems that are efficient by necessity. The constraint is the catalyst. Let me introduce you to a concept we need to rename. The culture calls it soft skills. Empathy, emotional intelligence, the ability to read a room, to intuit needs, to hold complexity without forcing resolution. These are the capacities that traditional business frameworks have consistently undervalued. Relegated to the nice-to-have category, the domain of human resources and customer service. But we're going to call it what it actually is: high-context intelligence, and it is the most valuable competitive advantage in an economy increasingly dominated by artificial intelligence. Here's why. A. I can process data. It can identify patterns, generate text, execute tasks with speed and precision that no human can match. But AI operates in low-context environments. It cannot read the subtext of a client's hesitation. It cannot sense when a child's silence signals anxiety rather than contentment. It cannot navigate the infinite variables of human trust, which is the foundation of every sustainable business model. And if you've spent years managing a household, negotiating with a toddler who has no regard for logic, anticipating the needs of aging parents, maintaining relationships across family systems, you have built a level of high-context intelligence that most MBA programs don't even attempt to teach. This is not soft. This is strategic leverage. Because as AI commoditizes execution, The premium shifts to the capacities AI cannot replicate: intuition, trust building, and the ability to hold paradox. The ability to say, this data suggests one thing, but my instinct says something else, and I'm going to investigate the gap. The women who understand this are not trying to compete with AI. They're building systems where AI handles execution, and they handle strategy. The machine does the labor. You do the thinking, and you do it from a headquarters where operational costs are already sunk because you're paying for the home, whether you're building an empire from it or not. Let's talk infrastructure, because if the home is your headquarters, then you need to treat it like one. Not with guilt, not with apology, but with the same ruthless intentionality you would bring to designing a corporate office. And the first investment is not a ring light. It's not a microphone. It's not even a website. It's the tool that signals to your nervous system. The operator is online. For me, that tool is a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Not because I need to block out the world at all times, but because when I put them on, my brain knows. We are in production mode now. The device creates a threshold between domestic operations and intellectual labor. It's a boundary that doesn't require a commute or a closed door. It's a switch I can activate in seconds. You wouldn't run a Fortune 500 company from a chaotic desk with constant interruptions, and no system for protecting deep work. And you're not going to build intellectual property that scales without creating the conditions for focus. This is not about perfection. It's about respect. Respect for the work. Respect for the value you're creating. Respect for the fact that your attention is the most finite resource you have, and everything in your environment is either protecting it or depleting it. The second piece of infrastructure is an analog database. In a world optimized for digital noise, the physical act of writing by hand creates cognitive depth that typing cannot replicate. A high-quality journal linen cover, archival paper, the kind of object that signals permanence is not a luxury. It's a thinking tool. This is where you capture the ideas that will become your proprietary frameworks, the observations that will become your content, the patterns that will become your curriculum. Because here's what the content economy rewards. First, semantic claim. The ability to name something the culture is experiencing but hasn't articulated yet. To take a common frustration and give it a framework. To say, you think this is personal failure. It's actually systemic design. Let me show you the structure. That requires thinking time. And thinking time requires space that is protected from the constant inbound of texts, emails, notifications, and requests. The third investment is lighting. Not ring lights, not studio lighting, but the kind of warm, architectural lighting that signals to your brain, this space is valuable. Lighting is emotional infrastructure. Harsh overhead fluorescents signal institutional controls, hospitals, offices where you are not the sovereign. Warm, directed lighting signals autonomy. It tells your nervous system, you are safe here. You are in command. This is not about aesthetics for their own sake. This is about environmental design as a strategic input. Because if your space feels chaotic or transactional, your output will reflect that. But if your space feels intentional, your work will carry that same quality. And that quality is what differentiates content that gets scrolled past from content that gets saved, shared, and monetized. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the noise. Because if you're building from home, especially with children present, there will be interruptions. There will be requests for snacks, mediation of sibling conflicts, questions about where the scissors are. And the cultural narrative will tell you this is a problem to be solved. That real professionals have uninterrupted time. That serious work requires silence. But let me offer you a different frame. The noise is not a distraction from the empire. The noise is the reason for the empire. Because the women who are building content, courses, and intellectual property from home are not doing it in spite of their children. They're doing it because of them. They're building an asset base that will outlive their active labor, that will provide for their family long after they've stepped away from the screen, that will teach their children a model of work that isn't extraction but creation. This is dynasty thinking. And dynasty thinking requires you to zoom out from the daily chaos and ask a different question. What am I building that will compound? Not, how do I get through this week? Not, how do I balance everything? But what am I building that will generate returns in 5 years? In 10, in 20? Because the content you create today, the video that takes you 4 hours to script and record can generate revenue for decades. It can be discovered by someone in 2035 who is facing the exact problem you solved in 2025. It can be licensed, repurposed, expanded into a course, cited in a book. This is not about going viral. This is about building intellectual capital that appreciates over time. And the mechanism that allows this is leverage. Leverage is the most misunderstood concept in business. People think leverage means working harder, doing more, adding more hours to the day. But that's not leverage. That's just more labor. Leverage means creating systems where your effort today generates returns tomorrow without additional input. A traditional job has no leverage. You stop working, you stop getting paid. Even high-paying jobs are just expensive hourly rates disguised as salaries. But intellectual property has infinite leverage. Once created, it works without you. And here's the beautiful part. The home is the ideal environment for building this kind of asset, because the home forces efficiency. You cannot pretend to be productive for 8 hours a day when you only have 2 hours of uninterrupted time. You cannot engage in office theater when there is no office. You cannot waste time in meetings that should have been emails when every minute is accounted for. The constraint becomes the design principle. And the women who thrive in this model are not the ones who try to replicate corporate structures at home. They're the ones who build entirely new architectures, who say, I have 2 focused hours in the morning. What is the highest leverage activity I can execute in that window? Recording a video that will be watched 10,000 times. Writing an essay that will be referenced for years. Designing a framework that will be taught by others. This is not about doing more. This is about doing the right things, the things that compound. So, let's bring this full circle. You are not staying home. You are securing the perimeter. You are not just a content creator. You are building intellectual property. You are not sacrificing your career. You are constructing an asset base that will outlive any salary. And the domestic headquarters you're operating from is not a limitation. It is a position of structural power that the traditional economy cannot compete with. Because you have something they don't. Sovereignty. You decide when to work. You decide what to build. You decide how to allocate your time, your energy, your attention. And in an economy that increasingly rewards ownership over employment, that sovereignty is the foundation of everything else. The women who understand this early, who start building now, who treat their home not as a fallback position but as an economic stronghold, they are constructing the next generation of wealth. Not wealth that requires you to perform for someone else's metrics, but wealth that reflects your values, your vision, and your definition of what a well-lived life actually looks like. The GDP is moving. The smart money is leaving the skyscraper, and the empire you're building from your kitchen table is just getting started. Disclaimer: this content is for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace consultation with a professional. Always consult a qualified professional for any questions related to finance or business. Tell us where you are building your empire from. See you in the next video.